Alright, we're going to try this slide again. Here we are continuing with Chapter 4, and we're picking up with reducing the need for mistaken behavior. If you may hear a mysterious beep in the background, it is from me getting an email. And I apologize, I do not know how to turn that off. Anyway, here we are, and we talked a little bit about at the very end, if you caught that, we were thinking about how you can reduce the need is much like going to the doctor when you first start getting sick instead of waiting until you need that emergency room visit. Well, mistaken behaviors often have roots in just the challenges of being a child, or sometimes the child is not a good fit with the classroom or with the program. If the child is a very active child, an outgoing child, a talkative child, and the child happens to be in a classroom where the teacher values quiet and stillness and obedience just to a T, that may not be the best match. Now, sometimes we can't fix that. And so as a teacher, we have to try to adjust. As a parent, you do have some control over those mismatches and fit to a point, but at some points you do want to help your child become a better fit with whatever program they're in for a huge variety of reasons. To address those, if it's a challenge from just being a child and being that age, it's important to get to know that child. If you're working with 3-year-olds, it's vital that you get to know what typical 3-year-olds are like, understanding what atypical 3-year-olds are like, and then beginning to know when is it best to intervene. Do I begin to intervene when children start a mistaken behavior, or do I wait to see where it goes and whether or not they can adjust their own behavior on their own? If it's from a mismatch, I may have to revise what I'm doing as a teacher to better meet the child's needs. Even if my personal preference is more quiet, more still, less talking. As a teacher working in early childhood, I have to begin to understand this is not natural, nor is it normal for young children to do those things. I have to begin to figure out how do I better tolerate a little bit more activity, a little bit more noise, and a little bit more talking in a way that suits both me and also the children's needs. And perhaps that means sometimes I just need to revise how I do things, or the order I do things, or just being more tolerant in general. Now, according to our textbook, we want to be solution oriented. We saw this picture before in our last chapter, chapter 3, if you used your PowerPoints. You'll notice the parent, it appears to be the mother, in the left-hand side of the picture. She looks very frustrated, overwhelmed. You'll see the children in the background. They appear to be fighting physically. Her job is to find a solution. Sometimes we want to find out why so badly that we forget to think about helping children understand part of learning about mistaken behavior and guiding children is helping them find better solutions for what they need. Guidance interventions are definitely solution-oriented, and these are some of the things we want to look at. The first one being conflict management. You'll remember in our last chapter, in chapter 3, I encourage you to make the 5 hands, the 5 handprint, using the 5 goals. Remember to calm down, to think of, let everybody tell their sides, think of solutions, pick a solution and try it. And the last one, remember, thumbs up, follow up, and see how it worked. We also discussed a little bit guidance talks, sitting down to talk with children about positive ways to guide their own behaviors. Sometimes this happens one-on-one with small groups, or even with a larger group of children, perhaps as part of a circle time. We want to remind, just a quick reminder, is to calm everybody down. We did talk a little bit about coming to agreement because sometimes that is a root of a problem. I see the problem is talking, you see the problem is moving, one child sees the problem as the toy itself is causing the problem. Brainstorming all those solutions, agreeing, and remembering follow-up as needed. So here's just another reminder. If you did not make the 5-print handprint in the last chapter, I still encourage you to do so. Look at her, isn't she cute? Here's some other examples of things we want to do. Sometimes we want to have a class meeting. You'll remember from other classes perhaps that class meetings can happen at circle time or as small groups when we venture to the side to talk about situations in the classroom. Crisis management. When your children are in crisis, sometimes you must request a choice. You may sit down or you may hold my hand. Would you like to walk to the story carpet to talk, holding my hand, or by yourself? Either way, we're going to the carpet, but the child does get a choice. Stop here or stop there. Either way, you're asking them to stop, but they still have a choice, here or there. Would you like to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt? Either way, we're putting on a shirt, but the child has a choice. That is important to still give them a sense of power and empowerment during this situation. Calming. There are lots of different strategies to use for calming. My personal favorite is just take a deep breath. Practice with me. Take it in and out. Others prefer to count, sometimes counting back from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Focusing in on just those words, the numbers, calming our breath as we count can be very helpful as well. Some other teachers prefer to do something maybe with your hands. Pretend you're a big balloon, blow it up, let it out. Whatever strategy you use, you really can't solve a crisis until everybody's calm. I encourage you to select the choice that works best for you. The third step is giving some cool down time. Now, if you're in crisis mode as the teacher, you need to cool down first. You can't help anyone find a solution when you're upset. Perhaps this is stepping away, asking another teacher to cover your class for a few minutes, calling your assistant over for some help. Whatever it means for you to cool down will model for children the importance of cooling down. For children, sometimes this can mean moving to another space. I'm not necessarily advocating moving to a timeout space, although that can be helpful, but perhaps moving to a cozy, quiet area, a beanbag, a chair, sitting on a teacher's lap, just taking the time to truly calm and cool down. The next step, which is what I hope you don't ever need, is considered to be passive restraint. This would be when a child is completely out of control. There have been a few times in my own personal experience we've used passive restraint, and usually it's been with permission of both a director, a principal, and the parents. This is when a child truly could harm themselves or someone else. Your textbook describes this as it looks almost like a bear hug, where you wrap your arms like this. I think you can see. You grab your own arms, never touching the child. You can see that I have a space here where the child would be between and inside in a safe space, but my arms would be on the outside. The entire time I would be saying something like this. Once you calm down, I'll release my arms. I'm holding my arms here to help keep you safe. Right now you could hurt yourself or someone else. Let's take a deep breath. You may need to repeat that several times. The reason you might do this is because arms and feet do hurt. They may hit you, they may hit another child. This is only reserved for when it's an extreme situation, typically level 3, strong needs. In my own experience over the last 25 years, I've maybe used it 4 times with 2 different children, so maybe twice with each child. Both were with children I knew had exceptionalities and strong needs, and both were in situations where we had approval from our director or our principal and the parents. Typically, following a passive restraint session, a child will feel completely worn out, perhaps sleepy, and very tired. They have spent all of their energy fighting, and wrestling, and now they just want to sit and hug and be reminded that you still love them, and they've had a very hard time today. In the last part of this book, we are going to look at this concept of liberation teaching. This is where the teacher's responses affirm the child's sense of belonging, worth, and competence in order to empower them toward growth. Our end goal at the end of all of our child guidance in working with children in the classroom is that they have self-control. Neither you nor I can follow them around day to day, every moment in our classroom, and certainly we don't get to go with them next year to their new classroom. Our job is to let them know that right now they belong in our class, and right now we love them just like they are. Sometimes they're harder to love than others, but our job is to show them that just by showing up each day in our classroom, they belong, they are worthy, and we are going to help guide them so that they feel competent. Feeling incompetent is a terrible feeling, not only for an adult, but also for a child. Feeling competent gives them the power to know that they can do the things that they need to do, and that is truly our biggest job. To the extent that they feel safe, we will know by their actions. If a child's safety needs are unmet, we will often see this in their mistaken behavior. If safety needs are unmet at home, often they will act out at school and at home. Mistaken behavior will continue to occur until these needs are met. It is our job to figure out and help a child articulate what is it that they need. A teacher who can figure out those needs builds that helping relationship with the child. And then, and only then, can we begin to conquer these mistaken behaviors. That truly is liberation teaching. When you look at the word liberation, you understand that it means freedom, release from bondage, from something that's holding them, something that's keeping them, a shadow, a power that they can't gain control over. Children need to understand that in a helping, loving relationship with their families and with their teachers, their needs can be met in successful ways once we begin to guide them to understanding their own mistaken behaviors. In order to be a liberation teacher, though, you have to monitor your own feelings and stay consistent in your communication. Anytime you feel angry, you're at jeopardy of taking that out on a child or towards a child. If you find yourself in that situation, I would hope that you would step away. Review those 5 steps. Take a deep breath. Calm yourself. Ask for help. Unfortunately, many of us, and particularly teachers, can sometimes take out our own feelings on children without meaning to. Should you become upset in the classroom and unknowingly take that out on a child, perhaps in a verbal way, by the words you used or the tone you used, I would hope as a teacher, as a professional, you would apologize. Remember, it's important for children to understand we are not perfect and we make mistakes. And as adults, we own up to those mistakes and we let children know when we too have had mistaken behavior. The last part of this involves being very consistent. Everything in this textbook does work. It really does. But it doesn't work if you're not consistent. And it doesn't work if you don't do it right and you don't communicate the ways that you're doing it. Our job is to communicate to families and build that partnership. That is where the best things happen. These partnerships are crucial to the work of you as a guidance teacher. Parents know their children. Families know their children. And sometimes families will say things like, "It's not my problem, you're the teacher." I know at least one of you has commented on something like that in your discussion boards. And that is true. You're the teacher, and it is your problem while they're in your classroom. But in the best partnership, the family will assist you and help you to better guide their child. To build those relationships, sometimes we